So welcome to the first ever CVP virtual graduation party for the class of 2022. As you guys were just talking, COVID kind of put a damper on some things. I think this year everyone got a graduation ceremony, but just in case, we wanted to do something fun. And Dr. Starvetsky, I'm glad you got to come to this party. So welcome and thanks for joining us. A little bit about CVP. So we are in 17 states across the US. I'm pretty sure we're at 113 hospitals now. We started in 2009 and we've been growing. Our first hospital was the Animal Hospital of Dauphin County near Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. And that's actually where Dr. Starvetsky practices today. So that's pretty cool. The two most important things to the CVP community are care and people, care for patients and care for people. So that's why we offer benefits that go beyond the essentials like healthcare, to make sure that you feel supported and well cared for so you can provide the best care possible to pets. In the last year, CVP has added a lot of great benefits for our community, including paid parental leave for birth or adoption of a new child. And that's for both moms and dads. So that's a really great benefit. Especially for, the people who are of age to start a family. We also offer free mental health support for all team members. So whether they're benefits eligible or not, we have free mental health support 24/7, 365. And then we have no negative accrual for our veterinarians, which means when you go on vacation, you don't have to worry about production. So that's a really great benefit too. We just launched a new team member incentive program, which I believe is like the best in the industry. So we are able to incentivize our teams for caring for pets, just for providing that great care. So that's a really great thing for our vet techs, our vet assistants, our CSRs to have behind them. In addition, for veterinarians and practice managers, we offer the opportunity for investment through our CVP Hospital Investment Program, CHIP for short. So we allow you to invest in the community so you can reap financial rewards as we grow together. So essentially you're owning a piece of the pie with CVP. You can learn a lot more about what we offer, what our job openings look like at cvpco.com/careers. And speaking of careers, we have Lindsay Dolce on the call with us today. She is a veterinarian recruiter. She resides in Nashville, Tennessee. A little bit about Lindsay, if I can move you guys out of my way, there we go. She has been in the industry for 7 years. She has 3 black cats and 1 dog. If you are interested in learning more about the CVP community or want to hear about some of the opportunities, Lindsay is always happy to answer those questions. And you can also reach out to careers@cvpco.com. So thanks, Lindsay, for joining us. In addition, we have Dr. Laura Strong. I'm sure some people recognize Dr. Strong. She's the director of our University Relations program here at CVP. She is an alum of Purdue University College of Veterinary Medicine. She lives on a farm in Fisherville, Kentucky, which I wish I could go see. So hopefully one day I can. She has 4 horses, 1 Doberman, and a Dachshund. Dr. Strong, like I said, is the director of University Relations here at CVP and has a true passion for helping vet students get the most out of their college experience and getting ready to take on their career upon graduation. Dr. Strong works really closely with our students, getting them placed for externships and clinical affiliate opportunities, and the CVP Student Colleague Program, which places students in our mentoring hospitals to gain hands-on experience throughout the summer. We also host those students for a fun and educational weekend in Philadelphia called Vet Together, which is actually coming up next week. So Dr. Strong will be here in the Philadelphia area, along with all of our student colleagues for 2022. And it's fun, it's educational, they get to network with each other and meet a lot of the CVP community members. So that's very cool. And then we have from CVP, Dr. Jennifer Starvetsky joining us, as I mentioned, from Animal Hospital of Dauphin County. Dr. Starvetsky is from Georgia. She attended vet school at Lincoln Memorial University in Tennessee. And she also participated in the clinical affiliate program at LMU and spent some time at Allentown Animal Hospital within the CVP community. And as I mentioned, she's at the Animal Hospital of Dauphin County, which was our first acquired hospital in 2009, and she has 1 cat and 1 dog. So thanks, Dr. Starvetsky, for being here. And last but not least, we have Julie Squires. She is a certified compassion fatigue specialist and a certified life coach. She's the founder and principal of Rekindle LLC. You can find her at rekindlesolutions.com, where you can listen to her podcast, read her wonderful blog. There's lots of amazing resources there for veterinarians and their team, so I definitely suggest you check that out. So thank you, Julie, for joining us, and I'm really excited for your session. You didn't hear this in school: practical wisdom from vets, life coaches, and sages. So that'll be fun. So with that, we're going to move into the Ask Anything portion of our session. So at registration, we had a couple questions come in for Dr. Starvetsky. Being that you're class of 2020, you're still kind of considered newer in the field, but you definitely have that experience under your belt. So we wanted to get just your perspective on what's it like being a new veterinarian. So the first question that came in was, what was your very first day like when you saw a patient without oversight or assistance?
So I think I had a pretty unique start, being I started in COVID, in the fact that when I first started, I was able to see the pets curbside. So the owners weren't actually in the room, so I didn't have to worry about that immediate face-to-face. So in some ways, I think that kind of helped ease into my first year, being that I could have time with the pet to do a full exam. If I had, questions, I could vent or take the dog out and get a second opinion pretty easily before calling the owner. So that was a unique experience that helped me. But then you also lose that face-to-face with the owner. So some of those, communication skills that you practice in vet school kind of get lost because you don't have that eye-to-eye contact, the active listening, kind of getting a gauge of, are they getting what you're trying to come across for their pet. But overall, I think it all really worked out. And this kind of goes with one of the questions of advice is really just take your time, because there's several classmates that I've talked to that really got kind of thrown in there immediately, 30 minutes in appointments, versus where I was able to, with the mentorship hospital, we started at 1 hour appointments and having at least 1 to 2 vets that were kind of in the side wings that I could bring pets to kind of ask questions and go through things fully, learn the computer system and all that. So where was I? Yeah. The first year was really good, and like I said, at that point, there could possibly be accrual, but I got over that within a month of starting 30-minute appointments, even with a month of hour-long appointments, just kind of seeing some on the side. So it doesn't really affect you in the long run. And I think it's much better for your mental health and not getting just kind of thrown into the fire by finding a hospital that will give you that time to ease into it, kind of get your footing with the hospital protocols, the flow of the office, your techs, and the whatever system they're using. And then being able to have that time to look up extra things because you're going to need it.
Yeah, definitely. That's good advice.
Yeah.
What has been the craziest case you've experienced so far? And that could even have come from your student experience, I guess, too.
I'd say so. I'm mostly interested interested. I really enjoy like the cats and dogs, but I'm also interested in exotics. So I'd say I probably see 50-50 exotics to cats and dogs at this point. And some of the more crazy cases have been rabbits, where one came in with just unknown bleeding. They weren't sure where it was coming from, just found spotting of blood in the bedding, and was able to localize it to genital bleeding. And then with an ultrasound, you could literally see the uterine torsion. So it had like a little spiral within the abdomen. So that ended up being like an emergency spay, basically, but wasn't expecting that. So that was a pretty cool and quick kind of localization, and kind of like a coordinated effort with our ultrasonographer. So got a really neat experience there. And
That's
then
an amazing find.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting. But on the cat and dog side, and this actually came pretty soon, I would say maybe in the first month or two. So it was when I was pretty fresh out, and dog came in with what we were told was, blood in the urine. The urine was just super dark, just pigmenturia at that point. We did an x-ray, but no stones were found. And so I was starting to go down should we do like an ultrasound? Is it one of those weird stones that don't show up? When kind of that, the knowledge does, like, it really does kind of come back to you as you're like kind of going through the list. And I was like, oh wait, let me spin it down. So we spun the urine down, and there was no little red blood cell pellet. It's like, oh, cool. So let's do the plasma. And so we spun a hematocrit tube, and the plasma was just super red. So we did a smear to find spherocytes. And so I think, it is a lot of information that is just like pouring into you in vet school, and then especially that last year. But it does come back to you, I think, in those moments of, what do I do next? It's not straightforward, but where should I go? And then at that point, I was fresh out. I was nervous that I was going to miss something, but then it's like, well, let me just go through this hematuria flow chart that we talked so much about. And so that led me to a pretty not rare, but a different differential. And so, yeah, that was a neat, and just kind of gave me that confidence that, I'm not going to know every answer for sure. And in those moments, it is nice to have a team like at HTC and CVP hospitals in general, because Allentown was equally that mentorship hub that you could go and ask questions when you needed to. So.
That's great to hear. And yeah, that sound like it just literally all comes back to you now, like Selena.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
So I know you've already given some advice, but one of the questions was, what's that one piece of advice that you wish you had when you had first started your career as a veterinarian?
Honestly, that's a tough one, because I feel like I was given a pretty good stepping stone into where I was at. So I'd say going into like trying to find, I don't know if the people here already know where they're going. And I think overall CVP has a great mentorship kind of setup. So but just asking, what is the expectations of that first month, kind of set that schedule. And then I always kept a little booklet next to me whenever I was kind of shadowing, because they give little insights into like if you're looking at a skin issue, asking questions and kind of figuring out what their flow chart, like their mental flow chart is, and I kind of take notes so that in those first hour-long appointment kind of things, if something came up that was similar, I could kind of, without bothering, not bothering, but without trying to go find that vet, I could follow her thought process as well. So yeah, I come back to taking your time.
Grabbing those nuggets as you go is really
Yeah.
yeah. Got it. And take your time. Yeah, that's really good advice.
Then
yeah.
just
yeah.
So, and don't be afraid to ask questions. Me and then there's another newer vet. She started a couple months before me. So we're kind of at that same level. Always asking vets that are kind of walking by is like, can you look at this x-ray real quick? Because thoracic rads, you're going to need a second pair of eyes on them. Yeah. And everyone is super willing to give their opinion and stuff on it. So
that's great. That's good to hear. Well, that's all the questions that we have. I think that was super helpful, and it sounds like you had great experiences as a student, and I wish you so much luck at AHDC, and we're so glad to have you as part of the community.
Yeah,
thank you.
I've been enjoying it.
Good. That's awesome. And how do you like the Harrisburg area?
It's nice. Yeah. Recently, like especially with this weather, been going on lots of hikes. There's beautiful mountains and ridges. Of course, coming from Tennessee is a good transition to still have that kind of activity level. Yeah, I really like the area. And then it's got the river right there. So really pretty river walk, lots of unique little places to eat. So
nice. That sounds great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Dr. Starvetsky.
Yeah, you're welcome.
We're going to move on to Julie Squires' session. So you didn't hear this in school. I'm going to end my sharing and I'm going to pass it over to Julie. There you go.
Excellent. It's like a baton.
Yeah.
All right. Wow. How fun. And I love I love the commitment that CVP has to not only the success of all veterinary professionals that at least within, the organization, but also like for new grads and really wanting to, I really see clearly CVP's dedication to new people that are again coming into the field, and that is so important because that is it's a challenging time. I mean, all of a sudden here you are graduating from vet school, and there's like all kinds of doubts and emotions involved, and lining up your first job, and what if you don't like it, and all the things to learn once you get out of school. So my session really is also about advice, right? Like, who doesn't want advice? Like, why would we not take advice from others that have already walked the path before us? To me, that makes perfect sense. So I'm Julie Squires. You've already heard a little bit about me. I'm a pug mom. That's the most important thing about me. I have worked in vet med for 30 years, but I just keep 25 on there because that makes me feel really old. I've been a receptionist, I've been a technician, I've been a hospital administrator, and I've spent many years in industry. And, I came to the work of veterinary well-being around 8.5 years ago. And that is what I do now as a full-time job. I own my own business and work with veterinarians one-on-one and in group settings. And, hopefully am another resource or an aid in your mental health and well-being, so you can be in this field and not just survive, right? We want to thrive, we want to flourish, we want to do all the amazing things. And I think that's just so important that we are finally at a place in vet med, because again, I've been around so long. We weren't talking about mental health and well-being 30 years ago. Matter of fact, it wasn't mentioned at all. And, many people really struggled because of that. So I love that we are talking about, mentorship and support and resources and all of those things. So important. So I am so psyched to be here. And let's just first start with hello, congratulations. You have accomplished something pretty dang amazing. I don't know if you know it or not, but 10 to 15%, you probably don't know what that means. I'm going to tell you what that means, 10 to 15%. 10 to 15% is the veterinary school admission rate. So you were selected, right? You were the 10 to 15% that was actually selected upon admissions, right? So just think about that for a second. Like that is such a major accomplishment. And, I think what ends up happening if we're not really careful is we have, I've worked with veterinarians for so long that I understand how long you've wanted this accomplishment. I work with veterinarians one-on-one, right? Many of my own clients have wanted to be a veterinarian since they were, 6, 8, 10. And what can end up happening if we're not careful is that we don't recognize what we've actually accomplished, what you've actually accomplished. So I want you to think about this. You have dreamed of this moment for so many years. Don't miss it. Don't just move on. It's our natural inclination, I think, to move on to the next thing. You're like, okay, graduate vet school, check. Now got to get the first job, check, got to excel at that. And you can very quickly move on to the next thing, and you forget about actually taking a moment and dwelling in your accomplishment. Again, you have accomplished something that the vast majority of us do not have the wherewithal to do, myself for sure. And I want you to really, really take some time for yourself and let that wash over you. I remember I was coaching someone who said, gosh, I remember when I graduated vet school, I didn't know what to do with myself. And some of you may be feeling like that right now, because you're like, okay, now what? Right? But I want you, before you get to the now what, really just take some time and again, bask in this moment that again, you have wanted for so long. Now, like I said earlier, we can rely on the wisdom of others. We're crazy not to be honest. I happen to run a group coaching program for veterinarians, and I have collected a lot of their advice for you to build this presentation tonight. So when I looked at the term wisdom, I thought, I wanted to really know, what is the definition of wisdom? And the way psychologists define wisdom is they say that wisdom involves this integration of knowledge, experience, deep understanding, as well as tolerance for the uncertainties. And I love that last part, tolerance for the uncertainties. I think that is probably one of the most powerful skills that you can embody as you, again, go into this next chapter in your veterinary career and perhaps in your life, is tolerance for the uncertainties. Now, we were talking before we went live about COVID, and, COVID has taught us about uncertainties. Let's not lose the lessons. COVID made us realize that our future is never guaranteed and or certain. COVID taught us that. Let's not forget it. So I want to, really impress upon you what others who have gone before you. So I'm going to share advice from veterinarians, from life coaches. Well, really one life coach, that'd be me, and from other wise people that have already lived on the planet. So the first bit of wisdom is about building your own identity. What does that mean? This was an advice from a veterinarian in my group. And she said, being a vet is not your entire identity, even though it feels like it is sometimes. And the invitation here is to figure out constantly and consistently and continually who you are outside of being a veterinarian, in addition to being a veterinarian. Being a veterinarian has been so much of your identity for the past 8 gazillion years, right? You've lived, breathed, slept, vet med. And that's amazing. And I get it. There's still, there are still things in front of you where you're trying to now go into a practice and quote unquote, prove yourself. Well, here's the good news. The good news is you don't have to prove yourself. You're already 100% worthy just by showing up, just by being born, right? You don't need to prove your worth. You don't need to prove your value. And this is important because when we start to believe that we have to prove ourselves, we get way caught up in how we're being perceived from the outside versus how we're being perceived from the inside. This is interesting. Another bit of advice came in about, teaching, about mentorship, which has come up a lot tonight already. Somebody said, find a mentor or coworkers that value and enjoy teaching. This includes not just the other veterinarians, right? You can learn a tremendous amount from your technicians, from your support staff, from your CSRs, from your kennel help. They all have so much to teach you. And you, again, have the opportunity to learn so much more. There is still a lot of learning. And Dr. Starvetsky, for sure, spoke to that a little bit as well. A little bit of wisdom from me about, preparing to fail. Hey, you know what? Here's the reality of the situation. The reality of the situation is that you're a human being. You're an imperfect human being like the rest of us. There is no perfection, right? We're all doing the best we can. Mistakes are going to happen. The question becomes, how will you treat yourself when you make a mistake? Will you have your own back or will you beat yourself up? Now, our natural inclination usually is to beat ourselves up, but it doesn't have to be. You can practice, and I highly recommend that you learn how to treat yourself the same way you would treat one of your fellow students, right? Or now fellow graduates. Like, what would you say to one of your friends if they called you up and said, oh my gosh, I made this mistake and this is what happened? Would you say, oh my gosh, you're a terrible person, you weren't meant to be a veterinarian, you're a terrible doctor? Or would you say, hey, you know what? Sounds like you did the best you could, and I'm so sorry that happened that way. Is there anything you can learn from that experience? I want you to decide now how you're going to treat yourself in the face of failure, because failure will happen. You will make mistakes. And let's perhaps redefine failure a little bit. Here's my philosophy. I think we need to redefine the term failure because it insinuates that there's nothing gained from it. And I understand the stakes are high, right? I get that sometimes a mistake could result in the death of a patient. I get it. I've seen it. I've witnessed it. I've been there. I know. We don't want that to happen, but yet it most likely will happen at some point in your career. I hope it doesn't, but it probably will. And the question becomes, wait a minute, what if we reframe failure to, you're either succeeding or you're learning? Succeeding or learning. There is no fail. Succeeding or learning. Next bit of wisdom comes in the span of communication, right? It's like communication is probably one of the most challenging things because you have all this knowledge in your brain, and now you have to communicate with pet owners and or support staff. As it relates to pet owners, the advice that came in was invest in your own communication skills, because the dialogue, the connection, the way that you relate to pet owners is going to be way more important than how quickly you can spay a cat. And this is often those places where so much angst comes up if you haven't had a lot of training here. And this is a really important piece, right? You have to be able to take your knowledge and be able to simplify it, in most cases, simplify it to someone on the receiving end of that so they can make educated decisions about what it is that you're offering them, what their options may be based on whatever's going on with their pet. Next up, I don't know if you've noticed, but we were all given 2 ears and 1 mouth. That's kind of on purpose. It's a 2-to-1 ratio, which probably means we should be listening more than we're talking. Here's something that's fascinating. And I learned this from one of my clients. One of the things that's going to be very fascinating in your veterinary career is that you are sometimes going to find that when you are in an office visit, let's say, the medicine may not be the priority. Sometimes the pet owner actually has needs that aren't medical. Sometimes it's about feeling like they are seen, heard, and valued. there's this very interesting dynamic for us pet owners and you veterinarians. The dynamic is I am terrified that when I come and see you, I am terrified to discover that I'm a terrible pet owner. I am afraid in every interaction with you that you're going to somehow tell me I'm a terrible pet owner. I've done something wrong. I've screwed something up. I have harmed my pet in some way. I've been ignorant, negligent, what have you. So there's this very weird dynamic that exists. And I'm going to tell you right now, there are going to be some situations where your medical knowledge isn't even going to be needed. What's going to be more needed is your ability to connect and validate people. Let them know that they're doing the best they can. Let them know that they have done the best for their pet, right? And yeah, sometimes, hindsight is 2020. Sometimes you wish that you would have seen their pet 2 weeks ago, but you didn't. And we have to be very careful about not going down a path where we can't rewind the hands of time and instead deal with what we have in front of us right now, what you have in front of you right now. Now, I'm not going to ever be talking to especially new grads, but veterinarians in general, where we're not going to talk about, the importance of how it is that our clients are perceiving us. At the end of the day, as much as, hey, I got into veterinary medicine not because of people. I got into veterinary medicine because of animals. And I know I'm not unique in that. But ultimately, it is about the connections with the people. It is about figuring out not only how to accommodate people who are having an emotional experience because they're afraid, they're feeling guilty, they're feeling terrified, they're feeling worried, they're feeling concerned, and being able to hold what we call hold space for them. What holding space means, and it's sort of like a life coach term, but what holding space means is, can you be in a non-judgmental space with people so that you're able to, again, take what it is that they bring you, their pet in whatever condition that may be, and let people feel as though they walk away feeling empowered in some way, right? They walk away feeling good in some way, even when the outcome isn't necessarily what everybody wants. And this can be super challenging. But I love this quote by Maya Angelou, right? She says, I've learned that people will forget what you said, they'll forget what you did, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. And I'm going to tell you something you probably already figured out. The majority of the thank you cards you get in your veterinary career will be for the euthanasias because of how you made somebody feel, because you made them feel good in a terrible moment in their life. You made them feel like they were doing the right thing. You made them feel supported. You made them feel seen and heard and valued. That will, again, take you your whole career, right? If that's the way you are able to interact with people. Now, how are you going to be able to do all these things? Well, we have to talk about self-care. Yes. So here's some advice. Take care of yourself. Be really intentional about replenishing yourself, and especially on your days off, right? You're going to have days off, and it has to become a part of your consistent practices of how you are rebuilding yourself, how you're resting, how you are taking your mind away and resting your brain. I love that Dr. Starvetsky was talking about going for hikes. Like, isn't that amazing? Go out in nature, be somewhere that you can't be on your phone, reading, books, looking stuff up, being on Vin. Like, you have to also rest your brain as well as your body. All of that, so important. And not going to lie to you, self-care is a radical act. The world would rather you didn't practice self-care. I'm going to ask you to be a rebel. I'm going to ask you to go against what society sort of imparts on us all. And it can get very tricky here, because here you've now entered into this very giving field of veterinary medicine, right? And our natural tendency can be to think we need to give all of ourselves to vet med, and you can't, right? Well, you can, but I don't want you to. I want you to understand that it is so critically important for you to understand that in order for you to be the best veterinarian you can ever be, you have to first and foremost take care of yourself. You have to be your priority. The rest will come later. The medicine will come later. But if you aren't coming at veterinary medicine from a full replenished place, you're going to be on an uphill climb, right? And I kind of call self-care the practice of coming home to ourselves every single day, checking in with ourselves, creating some space and some stillness in our lives where we're not attending to anybody else's needs, but our own. And that has to become a practice, right? And nobody teaches us that. And your brain will want to talk you out of it 8 ways till Sunday. Your brain will tell you there's more important things. You're gonna have to be prepared to talk back to your own brain. I do that all the time, talk back to my own brain. Another bit of advice that I got from those who have gone before you is about blame. I thought this was really interesting. Somebody offered this advice to you. Someone offered, avoid the blame game. Sometimes, she said, sometimes things just happen. And what blame tends to do is like we blame situations when we think the outcome should have been different than it is, right? But like that's when you think about that for a moment, when we're blaming, oh, you know, the client should have brought this dog in yesterday. Like when we're blaming, or this wouldn't have happened, right? It's their fault that this happened. Blame doesn't offer us anything. It creates just a sense of powerlessness, because we can't, first of all, go back and change things that have already happened. And all it does is keep us stuck. So sometimes we just have to understand, you know what? It doesn't even matter why it happened. What matters is here we are now. Let's figure out what we can do going forward. Next bit of advice is about feeling doubt. Eleanor Roosevelt gave us this amazing quote to say, remember, no one can make you feel inferior without your consent. Yeah, isn't that the truth, right? No one can make you feel inferior. No one can make you feel inadequate. We have to be onto our own brain's narrative. You have to be onto the story you're telling yourself. And if the story you're telling yourself is leading to you feeling a lot of doubt and a lot of insecurity and a lot of a lack of confidence, then you have to start telling yourself a different story. And one of the things I can tell you right now is that, and you just have to take my word for this, you are blind to your own level of knowledge. What does that mean? It means you don't even know what you know because you only know what you know. Does that make sense to you? In other words, your brain is filled with so much stuff, and you don't know another way of being because this is your current reality, right? You don't realize how much is in there. And you just have to trust that you know more than so many other individuals that you're going to be interacting with. And you have to believe in yourself. You have to believe, almost like Dr. Starvetsky was speaking to that. It's like, you know, she said, it comes back. You think you don't know it. You think it's in the recesses. It comes back. And you don't have to know everything. I always found in the practice that I worked in, I worked for, you know, I'm privileged. I had the most amazing veterinary mentor. And unfortunately, he passed away last year due to pancreatic cancer. And he taught me humility. When I started working for him, he was probably practicing for, I don't know, maybe 12 or so years. I love the fact, and he was so like, he would take on any surgery. Like he didn't care. He didn't care if he had done it before. He's like, I'm going to learn, right? This is like way before there were lots of specialty practices. You had to drive like 3 hours, you know, in order to get specialty medicine back then. But what I always loved is watching him study. Like he would go to the library in the hospital and pull off books and be studying before he went in to do the surgery. And he never had this, I could tell he never had the narrative like, well, I'm less than a veterinarian because I don't know all this stuff. I mean, literally, then he's practicing upwards of 20 years and still would go and refresh himself on anatomy before he would go in and do a particular surgery that he maybe hadn't done in a while or whatever. And that always was it was so freeing to me because it gave me permission. Just, you know, again, obviously I'm not a veterinarian, but it gave me permission that we don't have to know all this stuff. There are the resources all around us. So use it, right? Use all of your resources. All right. That was a little bit of a tangent, but I think it was worth it. One of the things that I also want to instill on you is the expectation that what can happen is you can think, okay, now I've accomplished this major thing. I've graduated from vet school. I'm now a veterinarian and I should love every moment of veterinary medicine. And if I don't, then there must be something wrong with me and I've chosen the wrong field. Well, let me clear that up right now. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to teach you what's known as the 50-50 concept. It's not the goal of our human life to be happy all of the time. That is not the goal. So if you're not feeling happy all the time, you're not doing anything wrong. The goal of a human life is 50-50. Look at these little emoji balls. That's, I guess, what they are. You'll notice they're not all smiling. Half of them are smiling and half of them are not. That is life, my friends. Life is 50-50. Half of the time we will feel happy and half of the time we won't. So not only is life 50-50, but veterinary medicine is 50-50 as well. Half of the time you're going to love it. And half of the time you're going to, again, be in doubt, be in fear, be, feeling insecure, lacking in confidence, feeling sad, feeling heartbreak. That's a real human life. You have to be willing to embrace it all. You have to be in for all of it. That is life. And I will tell you right now that it is in the times where you are experiencing discomfort where you will grow the most. Discomfort, the feeling of discomfort, that is how we grow, right? We don't grow in the comfort. You have to be willing to embrace all of that. And one of the things that was very strongly brought up in my group was about, also having a network, having a solid, this person called it a phone a friend or a group, having someone that you trust that you can bounce things off of, right? And there are so many ways to be connected with each other now. I know so many veterinarians that have little, they have little text groups or Slack groups or something where they're constantly, and they may be spread out all over the country or even in other parts of the world where they have that ability to just bounce things off of each other. They're not, working alongside of each other and in the same practice or even in the same, and not to say that there's anything wrong with that, but find what works for you, but make sure you have those outlets. Because those people, boy, there's nobody who understands what you're going through like somebody else who's going through the same thing as you. It's simple as that. Respect yourself. Yes, this comes from me. This is about my advice for you as a life coach is about having boundaries. Boundaries is the greatest act, not only of self-care, it's about taking care of yourself, but it's also about your self-respect. And in order to have boundaries, we have to be willing to listen to ourselves. We have to be listen when we get those pangs. Sometimes we call it, we feel it in our gut, or we call it our intuition, right? Your body's speaking to you all the time. Unfortunately, in the sciences, we often get disconnected from our body, but yet our body has all the wisdom. We think it's our brain that has all the wisdom. We are wrong about that. Our body has so much wisdom. Your body's speaking to you all the time. And when things don't feel right, you've all experienced that before, that's your gut telling you, yeah, something's off here, right? So listen to your inner guidance about, where you need to say no to something that doesn't feel like it's good for you, or where you need to say yes to something that might be good for you, right? It can go both ways. And there is no way to have boundaries without sometimes disappointing other people. They're going to have expectations about you, and their expectations aren't going to be met. And that has to be okay. That has to be okay. Because it's your responsibility to yourself to take care of you. It's nobody else's responsibility. That's on you. Oh boy, here's a great piece of advice. For the love of all things, find someone or something that makes you laugh every day, even on the crappy days, especially on the crappy days. Yeah. Veterinary medicine is the most amazing, wonderful field. It is filled with opportunities to laugh and experience those, lean into those. I know that, being a veterinarian is serious, but at the same time, it's not, right? It's like, It is, but it isn't. Make space for both. Adjust expectations. This was another bit of advice that came in. Don't expect owners to be able to do the big workups like they can in the quote unquote ivory tower. Yeah, I think this is probably one of the biggest adjustments that you'll have to make, is being able to work within the financial limitations of all kinds of clients that you're going to be exposed to. And I think that's one of the, I think this is really when veterinary medicine is an art, to be able to do that, to be able to give people some options, to say, well, you know, here's what I'd love to do, or here's what this, we could do this, we could do this, we could do this, right? Giving people options, and then based on their means, that is part of practice. Resilience. Well, Charles Darwin said it best. It's not the strongest that survive, nor the most intelligent, but those that are more responsive to change. Yeah. I want to encourage you to have a flexible mindset. I want to encourage you that, you know, life isn't black and white. Veterinary medicine is not black and white. Clients aren't black and white. And, you know, sometimes your cases aren't black and white. Have a flexible mindset. Be willing to work with your own brain, and, you know, consider different ways of approaching a situation if it hasn't, you know, worked this way, or getting resistance from a client this way, or your support staff, or whatever it might be, right? Being responsive to all the things that are currently changing around you. There will be lots of things that will be changing around you. And, you know, the more willing you are to be adaptable and flexible, which again, COVID has taught us. So, you know, you're on the heels of that amazing masterclass. So you're probably in good shape there. Couple more here. Remove your blinders. This was great advice that came in. Explore other paths in vet med besides that of being a clinician. Maybe work for NASA or a pharmaceutical company. There's so many things you can do. Yeah, one of the number one things that people come to work with me about, they say to me, I feel so stuck. You know, I don't know, like I can only do this. And it's like, and I'm always amazed when we get into that very tunnel vision in veterinary medicine. Like, there's a million different ways to you know, practice veterinary medicine, a million different ways. Keep open to all of it. And sometimes the only way we figure out what we want to do is by figuring out what we don't like. So be willing to try some things. And again, there's no failure, right? You can just check things off the list, go, oh yeah, I tried that, I didn't like it. Okay, good. Now you know. Cultivating an empowering mindset. Yeah, I'm all about this. I'm all about teaching veterinary professionals to understand that the power of your thinking is the experience of your life. Your life is not just happening to you. Veterinary medicine is not just happening to you. Things are happening around you, and the mindset you bring with you to that each and every day. Are you willing to look for positives? Are you willing to think about it in a different way? Your thoughts create your feelings. You want to pay attention to what you're thinking about yourself and about all of this around you. Is it empowering, right? Or is it disempowering? You'll know the difference, because empowerment feels very different than disempowerment. And yeah, let's bring this home here. Embrace these moments, right? It's not better anywhere else. It's not going to be better. We think that in a year, oh, it'll be better if I can just rush through the first year of my career, and then it'll be better. Then I'll feel confident. Guess what? It's not better there, right? When you're a year in, 2 years in, 5 years in, 10 years in, there's all still the 50-50. There's still going to be things that are amazing. There'll still be things that stink. That's life. Can you, again, be willing to just be with yourself and where you are on your journey, right? There's no need to rush. Be patient with yourself. Be patient with your surroundings. And yeah, like, and be present for all of this. Don't rush through all of this, because again, here's what happens. You'll be, 20 years into your career, and you'll be looking back. We do this all the time. Like, oh, if only I had approached starting my career differently. I wish I were more patient. I wish I supported myself more. I wish I had my own back more. I wish I believed in myself more. You can start that right now. So I have just one quick homework assignment for you. Homework, it's tongue in cheek. I want to encourage you or invite you to become the CEO of your life. I want to invite you and to encourage you to schedule a time with yourself at the end of every month. I want you to put it on your calendar right now when we end this webinar. I want you to go on your calendar and put an appointment, a 30-minute appointment with yourself at the end of every single month. And here's what I want you to do. I want you to write down 3 things that didn't go the way you wanted within that last month. I want you to write down 3 things that did go the way you wanted, and then 3 things that you learned from it all. And you know what will happen at the end of your first year? You will have an amazing resource to look back and watch your own development, right? And you could keep on going. I wouldn't even want you to stop after 1 year, but just imagine what you would have after a year. It would be so phenomenal to look back and see your progress. You won't be able to see it unless you document it. You will forget who you are now a year from now. That's what happens to us, right? So I want to thank all of you so much. There's all my contact info. I won't spend much time on that. I do have a podcast if you want extra support. And I think it's important that you create extra support. I have an email list. I send out inspiring emails twice a week. You can jump on that as well. And mostly I want to just thank CVP for bringing me here. Carly, Dr. Strong, Dr. Starvetsky, thank you so much. And I think Carly's going to wrap this up.
I am. Thank you so much, Julie. That was awesome. I got a lot of advice out of that. I'm not a veterinarian, but it was a lot of great life advice, especially you and Dr. Starvetsky both said, take your time, have patience. And I think that's a really important lesson that we all need to just chill. We all just need to slow down a little bit. So thank you. That was really, really great. I loved it. I'm just going to end it here and let everyone know CVP truly cares about our veterinary professionals and our team members that support our veterinary professionals. And we know that when people have what they need, they thrive. And when people thrive, pets thrive. So that's what CVP is all about. We're building a community that provides extraordinary care for all of its members, no matter how many legs or wings they may have. CVP knows what's important to people, and making sure that they have what they need so they can focus on delivering great care is our priority. Again, I'll just reiterate that if you are interested in learning more about the CVP community, you can reach directly out to Lindsay. She's on the call. She's lindsay.dolce, DOLCE, at cvpcode.com, or you can just reach out to careers@cvpcode.com, and a recruiter will be more than happy to talk with you and find your best fit in our community. So thank you, everyone. Dr. Starvetsky, Lindsay, Dr. Strong, Julie. This was really great. Loved it. And hopefully we can do it again next year. So congratulations to the class of 2022.
Yay!
Now we need that graduation music again.
I know we do. Thank you all. Good to see you, Dr. Starvetsky, again.
This is awesome. Thank you so much.
Bye. Bye, Julie.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.